before I attack this turkey, I'm going to go in and do some of this stuff because it's less significant and it will loosen me up, right? So, and here I want my lines to actually vary in weight. Now, my light source is coming from this direction, so I would probably keep that in mind at some points in this. You can see here that I'm just kind of wiggling my brush around sometimes. You'll notice sometimes I draw up and sometimes I draw down. You know, it depends on if I want the fat end of the line at the top or the fat end of the line at the bottom. It really, it's kind of just goes by how I feel, to be honest with you. I often have to even draw my brush to a point as I'm going. Nice little dry brush mark. I don't recommend dry brushing because there's always 12 people between you and the printed product who can fuck it up. You can edit out my language if you want to. So now I'm going to go to the turkey. So you can see here I started out really tight, right? And then went to something extremely loose. And if you pull the camera back, I think you can see that all that loose stuff I just did completely fits in, right? So now we're going to go straight into the turkey. So, and then dip, twirl, and I'm going to do turkey number 1. Okay, my light source is here. So obviously the turkey's going to be a little lighter here and a little heavier in the bottom and on the other side. Sometimes I break those rules a little just to go with feel. Wow. Ink wasn't flowing off my brush very well there. Got it now. Okay. And I'm going to go a little heavier down here. See, it's a little like dewlap or something hanging underneath it, so I'm not going to go super heavy there because it's not a heavy object. Line weight describes like 3 different things. I'm going to go heavy here. Line weight, and I probably said this in the lectures already, but there's no sense in not repeating it. Line weight defines light and shadow, weight, as in volume, weight, volume, light, shadow, and distance and depth. So when you're using your line weights, you're trying to control light and shadow, you're trying to control weight and volume, and you're trying to control depth. So the heavier lines are going to pop this up and obviously come forward before these thinner lines, right? The more active lines are going to also pop forward. The heavier line here is because that's a heavy breast of the turkey, and even though this is underneath in the same area, it's not as heavy because that's just a little flappy skin piece. It's still heavy because it's in the foreground. It's really amazing how much thinking you have to do to pull this off. Now to go across this back, I'm rehearsing the line in advance a little bit, which I do a lot, and that's because I'm not drawing from my fingers, I'm not drawing from my wrist, I'm drawing from my elbow and my wrist, and my elbow and my shoulder, okay? That all came from shoulder, okay? So inking with your whole body becomes very important. Now back to finger inking. Is finger inking good? You don't get refunds for the bad puns, by the way. Those are just bad jokes and references. Also, when I screw things up or they don't quite look right, I go in with white and fix them. And I actually do that on here so you can see what that looks like. You know, what do I consider not right, okay? There's my lines in rhythm again. Nice little heavy line going thick to thin. Okay.
So talk to us about turning the page, turning the piece of paper around. We see you doing that a lot.
Well, because I know, like, just instinctively which position my hand needs to be in to make the line I want, you know, and it's probably not consistent from day to day. I think it's really a mood thing, you know, but like I just kind of know I'm going to be comfortable making this line at this angle, so I'll often turn the page completely upside down or whatever I need to do. That was an accident, but it worked out really well, so I'm going to leave it. Leave room for happy accidents. Now my fingernail just caught in slightly damp ink, and it kind of screwed up my move. That's another reason to move the paper around, is keep yourself out of the dry ink, or the wet ink. See now, this is where the ink's a little wet, is causing me trouble. This control that you're seeing, contrary to the belief of a lot of people who don't want to learn it, is not a gift from God. This is just, you know, my own insistence upon mastering this stuff. It's got nothing to do with talent. It's got to do with desire. I want these in rhythm. I want them to kind of go thick to thin, so I went upside down. You don't want to get in the habit of making too fine lines because they won't print. And let's face it, you know, a lot of our comics these days are done on cheap, shitty printing, right? And so if you start putting in super fine lines and they don't show up, your drawing's going to look a little weird. I've learned with time pretty much how thin I can get away with, and, you know, what I need to... Here I want that kind of raggedy, kind of feathery back of the leg. Here's my zigzags at work. These loose zigzags were hard won. That did not come easily for me. In fact, to tell you the truth, I couldn't do that kind of loose zigzaggy stuff very well, very consistently. I took 1.5 years off drawing at one point, and kind of went back at it thinking I'd have really screwed myself and I wouldn't be able to draw anymore, but somehow that 1.5 years I took off actually made me better. I may even put a little hint of shadow here underneath that foot that's raised up and down along underneath here. Maybe even a little hint of it in here. If I don't like it, I'll pull it out. That's pretty good. Yeah, that kind of anchors them down there, doesn't it? Pretty well. Okay, so there's one finished turkey. Now, if I'm going to do a couple little tweaks, rinse out your brush. Do not leave it sitting in the water. Actually, if you want to, go ahead, but that's your $20 brush. Here I am, bringing my wash to life. Just putting water on it. You want to get it to the right consistency. That's a weird one, too. Like, how do you know what consistency you want? You know, it's been at this so long. I can kind of tell. Sometimes, I have to go at it a couple times to get the, you want it to flow off the brush, obviously, but you also want it to cover. You're supposed to cover. There were a couple spots on this turkey that I thought were a little heavy, and maybe you could use a little tweaking. I didn't like this little line here. Who the hell would have noticed that, right? But thank you for laughing. But still, it bugged me.
Oh, wow.
And this kind of pulls down on the. There it is.